Hello there, I am Kat Toronto, also known of course as my alter ego Miss Meatface, and this is episode 4 of my YouTube series, What's Behind the Mask. Thank you so much for joining me. For this episode, I thought I would talk a bit about my fascination and obsession with dolls. If you're at all familiar with my Miss Meatface work, you'll probably recognize that I use a lot of doll-like masks and imagery, and I also incorporate dolls, a lot of vintage dolls into my Meatface work as well. So I thought I would just talk a little bit about where this fascination came from, and my own background with dolls, and why I am a bit obsessed with creating my own human doll of sorts. Now, I don't know what your relationship is with dolls. As a kid, I'm just trying to think back to one of my earliest memory of dolls and what that would have been. And I think it was, I'm not sure exactly how old I was, but I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And I was given a little wooden box that had little tiny dolls in it. Called worry dolls, and they're Guatemalan dolls that were made to give to children who were worried all the time, or sad, or had problems that they needed to get out and to tell somebody. So they thought that these little worry dolls, if you gave them to a child and said, here, tell them your worries before bed and put them under your pillow, and then during the night, the little dolls will come out and take away all of your worries. So I think these dolls were given to me obviously with good intentions, because I was quite a anxious, worried child growing up. So these dolls were given to me, and they freaked the living daylights out of me. I was so scared of this concept that they were going to come out from under my pillow at night and crawl into my head and do things inside my head, that I took the box of them and I threw them as far as I could into the back of my closet, and that was the end of the worry dolls. So my earliest childhood memory of an interaction with dolls was obviously a fairly creepy and slightly negative one. And then moving from there, as I got a little older, my dad introduced me to the television program, The Twilight Zone. And as many of you know, there is the famous episode called Living Doll, which features Talking Tina, the talking doll that threatens to kill the parents of the little girl. And so needless to say, that also left quite an impression in my mind regarding dolls and the creepiness factor. The idea of the human doll and even human mannequin, living mannequin concept was introduced to me via the Twilight Zone episode called After Hours. Now, in this episode, this young woman, early 20s, you see her go into a big department store. She goes up, she's looking for a golden thimble to give her mother for her mother's birthday, and the person at the counter says, oh, well, we don't have that here, but if you go up to the top floor, you'll probably find it there. So she gets on the elevator, she goes up to the top floor, and the elevator doors open, and it's almost a completely empty floor with just empty display cases, and just you see these like shadows, silhouettes of mannequins scattered around the floor. And so she gets off the elevator, and you know, I don't want to spoil it, but eventually the mannequins start moving and things are revealed to her, and she has this huge revelation at the end. But just the idea of the mannequins coming to life after hours. And also as a kid, I watched the show Today's Special on PBS, which was about a department store mannequin who had come to life after the store closed. I mean, all these things had a huge impact on my imagination, obviously, and just come back to me in my Meatface work and my own, maybe they're exactly what sparked my own fascination with living dolls, human dolls, etc. But if you haven't checked out that episode of The Twilight Zone, and this is stuff that interests you, I highly recommend you check out After Hours. Moving out of childhood and into my teenage years, and then further into my adult years, I recreated the narrative for dolls in my life, really. They had always been there, and I'd always been interested in them, or they intrigued me for one reason or another, usually for more of the creepy reasons than anything else. But as I grew into adulthood, the idea of dolls, I wanted to delve deeper into that, and I also wanted to put a positive spin onto them as well. And actually, I ended up start making my own dolls. I have a lot of friends in the doll making community, and they inspired me to start creating my own dolls. So about 10 or so years ago, I actually jumped into doll making. And this little lady here is one of the dolls that I made. She was based on a 20s boudoir doll, which similar to this lovely little lady here, who is an actual antique boudoir doll from the 20s or 30s. But yeah, I had a wonderful time just playing around, and as well as making dolls, I was also creating doll-like masks to use in a lot of my earlier Spirit Saint shoots and my Victorian spiritualism series that I did before the Spirit Saints. And I think what really drew me to masks within my work was the fact that, you know, by putting on the mask, you can just completely transform your identity. You can become a completely different person or character. And that's also what really attracted me to the masking and dollification fetish. I love that personally, and I love doing that personally, but also I like doing that to other people, and creating a living human doll. That absolutely fascinates me, and the fantasy is incredible. And so it's important that I brought that aspect of the masks and my interest in dolls and human dolls into the Meatface work via dollification of my meat maid. And also for me, like creating Miss Meatface, she is also like a human doll. She's this doll and character that I have created and I've given life to, but it is important to have the mask be a part of that, as it very much assists with that whole transformation. Dolls really went from having this really sinister, creepy connotations for me when I was a kid, all the way up to now when I look to dolls as companions, as objects of comfort, and also in my Meatface work as objects of fantasy and desire and beauty and expression and sensuality. So it's really interesting seeing the different the different sides of dolls. So yeah, that's been my experience thus far with dolls and my own history with dolls, I guess you could say, my own past relationship with dolls and how it's transformed into what it is now, which is a really positive thing. Thank you so much for joining me on episode 4 of What's Behind the Mask. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me and all of my dolls here and learning more about my own fascination and obsession with dolls and how it relates to my Miss Meatface work. If you would like to find me on social media, you can do so on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. It's just at Miss Meatface. And then if you feel like donating a couple bucks, a couple pounds to a pack of film for an upcoming shoot for me, that is totally appreciated. And you can find me at buymeacoffee.com, where you can go ahead and donate if you would like to do that. Of course, all this information is below in the description as well. And I look forward to see you on episode 5 next week of What's Behind the Mask. I'm not exactly sure what the theme of next week is going to be yet, but I hope that you'll join me, and I appreciate you spending time with me right now. So lots of love. Mwah! Bye-bye.